If you own your MSP and you're just crazy busy all the time trying to grow the business while keeping the clients happy, retaining your best staff and remembering to go home now and again, you'll know that it's a constant juggling act. And once you get past your first 4 or 5 staff, you might have the resources to hire an operations person. Now, they would take up the day-to-day attention to details, freeing you to look at the bigger picture of growing your business. Is this something you'd consider doing? Maybe you're worried about giving so much responsibility to someone you haven't met yet. My expert guest today will tell you how an operations director frees the leader of the business to see the big picture and take more holidays or vacations. Looking at marketing, he reveals why you must build relationships with prospects before trying to sell them anything, and looking at sales, why you must only chase fish that are big enough for dinner and let the tiny fish escape. Hey, I'm Paul Green, and don't forget, for all the content, tools and training to market and grow your MSP, check out mspmarketingedge.com. Today's big interview is all about the mindset needed to grow your MSP.
Hi, I'm Damien Harrison. I'm the Director of Operations at Bondgate IT.
And thank you so much for joining us, Damien. It's great to have you on the show. And we're going to talk today about why you need to spend more time nurturing relationships and building up some trust with people before you ask them to buy from you. It's a classic mistake that many MSPs make with their marketing and with their sales. We're going to explore why MSPs do that and some better ways of doing it. Let's first of all learn about you. So tell us a little bit about your career and how you've come to do what you do now.
My career's been incredibly varied. So I've worked in several different verticals, really, several different industries, from education to healthcare. I started off probably around about 2002 working for a claims company as kind of an IT engineer, but they gave me the badge as IT manager because there was only me. And slowly progressed from there into education. And then I moved up to the northeast of England and a couple of rocky jobs here and there, trying to find my feet, and ended up working for the NHS for several years. From there, I started working for a national charity as IT manager and the head of IT eventually. And I came across Gary Brown, the MD of Bondgate IT, and I thought that was probably a really good step for my career. And here I am. Almost 5 years down the line.
Fantastic. And for those outside the UK that don't know, the NHS is our national health service, because here in the UK, anyone gets free healthcare at any stage, which is great. In principle, it has a few issues, as you can imagine, after about 70 years doing that. But you've had lots and lots of different jobs there, and now I think you said you were head of operations for the MSP that you work for.
Director of Operations.
Okay, Director of Operations. So that's not a job title I hear very often. So what's a practical example of what you do on a day-to-day basis? So for example, compared to someone that's like a help desk director or help desk manager, how does your job differ?
I get involved at every aspect of the business. I'm kind of the MD's, I'd say, right-hand man, so anything that needs doing around the business kind of ends up with me eventually. So it means I get to see all aspects of what I call customer journey. So from the sales through to the support, through to projects, all the way through to billing, and then I get to see kind of stuff from the board level as well. So I get to see what impact we're having for the business, but also what impact we're having on the customers.
And it's really interesting because before I started my first business in 2005, I worked for a couple of big companies, thousands of employees. They had boards and they always had operations directors as well. And these were media companies, but it was interesting how the operations people were the ones that actually ran the business, whereas the CEO was the one that obviously set the direction and set the strategy, but didn't actually run the business day to day. Is that the kind of thing that you're involved in? And if that's the case, what's the benefit to the MSP of you working in that way?
It gives a sort of it is kind of what I am involved in. It gives another hand to help the MD kind of run the business. He's not always able to be involved in every aspect of the business. And the reality is he shouldn't be. He should be able to focus on where his strengths are. So Gary's strengths, and I don't think he'll mind me saying, are dealing with customers. He's very strategic. He works at kind of a board level when dealing with some of the larger customers we work with. which means he doesn't always have the time to look at the nitty-gritty of a business. So how the support team's handling stuff that's been passed to them by the sales team, and how the project team are handling stuff that's been passed from the support team, and vice versa. It allows an extra couple of eyes on the business, and it allows us to challenge fairly and be a bit more present in the business on a day-to-day basis.
And also, you're allowing him to take more holidays, which I'm sure is great for Gary.
I'm pretty sure he appreciates that as well.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? So obviously, as an IT person, you're now involved in every aspect of the business, as you know the typical MSP owner would be. Yours is obviously a much bigger business. You're overseeing a lot more activity. And one of the interesting things that you said to me just earlier, or what you said earlier, was that you oversee from where you go talking to new customers or prospects right through to how you actually deliver to them. What are some of the most interesting things that you've learned over the last few years as you've gone from being, if you like, just an IT person looking at actually, hey, how do we deliver and how do we satisfy and meet the expectations of these customers?
Probably the most eye-opening thing for me over the last 5 years working at Bondgate is the many levels of that journey for the customer. It's easy when you're sat on the receiving end of an MSP, so you're there as a customer and you might not be happy with the support you're receiving, or you might be looking at the price going, I'm not paying that. But there's so many different cogs and wheels that are spinning to deliver that customer experience. And there's so many different handoffs that need to happen at the right time, at the right place. It's very much like a factory, isn't it? It's as a piece of work comes onto the table, it moves across the factory and it moves across a conveyor belt. And if one piece of that conveyor belt's not working at the right pace, at the right speed, the customer journey is really impacted. So you've got to focus equally on every little aspect of that journey for that customer. And you don't always see that when you're sat within just the technical support area or within the sales or the projects areas.
So I can imagine it must be a massive benefit for you just having this oversight of all the cogs in the machine. Now let's talk about sales, and in particular building relationships with prospects before you actually ask them to spend money with you. So why do you think most MSPs are particularly bad at this, Damien?
It's probably time and understanding of how you go about building them relationships. I've sat on the opposite side of the table where people have been trying to sell to me, and you've got your quotas to meet, and you're not going to be able to invest that time and energy into chasing every little fish down the stream. By trying to chase every fish, you're watering down kind of the quality of what you're building. People have got to know you. I'm a big believer that if people don't know you, then the chance of them buying from you, it's not going to happen. Or it's very, very limited as to how it's going to happen. If people don't know you, they're very much not likely going to trust you. And if they don't trust you, the chances of them buying from you, again, really diminish quite quickly. So you've got to spend that time getting to know people and letting people know you. I think a lot of the time when I see marketing from MSPs, it's very much focused on look at these shiny products that we can sell, rather than look at us as a business, look at our personalities, look at our individuals and our humans, look at how we deal with each other in the office, but also how we deal with kind of our customers. I think that makes a huge amount of difference. The more time an organisation, an individual spends on the human aspect, I think the more successful you tend to be at not only business, but at life as well.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And I've got two specific follow-up questions to that. The first of them is about the size of the fish. So you were saying you don't go after minnows, which may be a uniquely British word for very small fish, but that kind of makes sense that you just go after the size of fish that the business most wants. Is it very hard for you as an organisation to say no to a customer because they haven't got enough users or they're not willing to commit to a minimum spend each month?
It's always incredibly hard, isn't it? You've got your growth targets as a business. And when someone comes knocking, it's very easy to get really excited that someone wants to spend money with us. But it can be a distraction. It can be a real distraction if that business isn't the right business, if they're not wanting to be a partner with you. It's all right on a transactional basis, people spending money day in, day out. But the MSP industry for me, it's not that. It's not transactional business. It's got to work in a partnership where the MSP and the client are both helping each other reach their goals and reach their targets. It's very easy to get distracted with chasing something that's not right.
Yes, I can understand that. And the second follow-up question is about how you build those relationships. So without giving away any secret sauce from your business, give us some examples of how you and your team build relationships with prospects before you ask them to get into a monthly recurring revenue contract with you.
The easiest way we've found is by attending networking events. So if it's people that you're reaching locally, attending the same network events that they go to. And it's about being that consistent approach. You can't attend one networking event and suddenly send out your sales brochure to everyone that was there. You've got to attend time and time again. I think you've got to touch base with people at least 9 times before you even start to think about trying to sell them. And yeah, it might work sometimes. You might meet someone once and they might buy from you straight away. But the chances of that, for me, are slim. It's about taking your time, taking that energy. I think a friend of mine used a phrase once, at least buy me a drink first. And you're not going to go on a date and ask someone to marry you on the first date. You take that time on your relationships, you take that time to get to know people. And the same's got to happen in business. You've got to take that time and that energy. You've got to give. So I'm a big believer in kind of the go-giver frame of thinking. You've got to give to people. And the more that you give, I believe, the more that you gain.
Yes, I completely agree. And in fact, the whole philosophy of BNI, which is a big networking group, is based on givers gain, and exactly what you just said there. I have to pick up what you said about not marrying someone on the first date, though. You've clearly never been to Las Vegas, Damien. I think if everyone in their lifetime should at least go to Vegas once and marry a stranger. It's almost a rite of passage, I think. But no, you're absolutely right. I think it's interesting, the more cool digital tools that we get, and there are always new tools coming out every day, almost the harder it is for us to reach people. And if you go back, 40 years to where you had to physically go and meet people in meetings and sit in offices with them and have coffees and have beers with them and shake their hands and actually have a face-to-face conversation. And that was how people used to get to know each other. And now we've got digital tools that allow us to try to do that with 20,000 people at the same time. And the reality is we're just not impacting on those people. So it takes, 10, 20, 30 digital touch points. I'm making this up as I go along, but 10, 20, 30 digital touch points has the same impact as 1 or 2 or 3 physical touch points. I think we massively underestimate just how powerful it is to physically see people eye to eye, to physically shake their hand and to have a conversation with them. Damien, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the insights of what you do in your business. For those MSPs who are listening right now and are thinking, this is a cool guy, I'd like to talk further to him, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Tell us how we can find you on LinkedIn.
Probably the best way to connect with me is via LinkedIn. It's via Damien Harrison. And I've got a little MBA at the end of my name, so I stand out a little bit.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.